Hi guys, my name is Ariel, and today I'm going to be doing the last 10 book tag. This tag is basically just to talk about the last 10 books that you bought, you DNF'd, whatever. I really wanted to record a video, but I wasn't sure what to talk about, and I've been thinking about this tag for a while, so decided to do it. Also, in case you didn't notice, I went ahead and did something really brave for me. And I got a nose piercing. So in case you're wondering what that is, it's not a pimple, although that would be a fair assumption. But yeah, I really like it. I got it done literally yesterday, and I really like it so far. So on to the questions. The first question is the last book that I did not finish, and I am really bad about not finishing books or setting them down and picking them up way later. But very often there will be times where I will pick up a book and just set it down and never pick it up ever again because I really don't want to read it or don't want to finish it. The last big one that I'm going to say is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. It's not that I did not enjoy this book. I really liked Six of Crows. Honestly, the biggest reason why I won't be finishing Crooked Kingdom is because of the spoilers. Now, it's nobody's fault. It's just the series is so popular that everybody has talked about it a lot already. And it's one of those books that are so popular that if you haven't already read them, you probably know what they're about. And I don't really want to pick up a 600-page book that I already know the ending of, that is already a genre outside of my comfort zone. The writing was really awesome. The characters were really awesome. It's just I have no desire to finish the series at all, and I'm not planning on picking up the Grisha trilogy at all. So honestly, I'm just really excited for the TV show to come out. The second question is the last book that I reread, and I haven't reread a whole lot of books this year. I only reread one actually, which is the one on this list, but I usually reread a lot more. It's just that this year when I started this booktube channel, I really wanted to read books I had never read before, which is a good thing, but going back to the books that I really love, I've been really neglecting that. The only book that I reread this year was Hold Still by Nina LaCour. Nina LaCour became really popular because of her book, We Are Okay. And I would say that if you like that book, I think you would really like Hold Still. I think I reread Hold Still back in May or something, and I remember rereading that book a lot when I was younger, but it had been a few years since I read it, and I still love it. I still cried, which I was really surprised about. There's nothing surprising or shocking that happens in the book at all. It's just really emotional. The story follows a girl named Caitlin whose best friend Ingrid committed suicide, and she's trying to move on from that and heal from that. She does one day find a journal that her friend Caitlin left for her after she passed, and it's kind of Caitlin's story of rediscovering her best friends, of building relationships with people that she wasn't close to before, healing from a really traumatic event. If you are sensitive at all to depression, mental health, suicide, I would not recommend it at all because there are certain graphic depictions of suicide in there. I would be aware of that going in, but I absolutely love this book. I really am happy that I had a chance to reread it this year. The third question is the last book that I said I read, but I didn't. Usually when I finish a book, or usually when I'm done reading a book, but I haven't finished it, I don't even put it on my Goodreads that I've read it, but very rarely will I actually review a book that I hadn't technically completed until the last page. When that happens, I most likely would have read up until the 80% mark. That doesn't really happen too often, and usually those books I rate low, of course. The most recent example of this is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. Basically what The Deal is, it's about a girl who is doing really well in her class, and a boy on the hockey team makes a deal with her that if she helps him study, then he'll help her secure a date with this really hot football player, I think is what it's about. I thought it was just very plain. It wasn't anything that I wanted to continue reading. I wasn't loving it, so I just decided to DNF it at 80%. It wasn't a bad book by any means. I just didn't want to finish it. Number 4 is the last book that I wrote in the margins of, and I honestly don't do that a whole lot. I don't have a problem with annotating, and I feel like I'm one of those people that should, just because there are certain books that I love and that have affected me so much that I want to go back and like reread certain passages. I did that a lot with Twilight. I dog-eared my favorite pages from the book. I don't do that like with fancy pens or highlighters or anything like that. The most recent book that I did that to was for school, of course, and that was Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. We had to read that book for class, obviously, but it was also part of my 5-star prediction video, and I really, really enjoyed it. Virginia Woolf's writing is very strange, very stream of conscious. I would recommend if you read it, or I haven't read any of her other works yet, but it probably is a case for all of her books. If you want to read Mrs. Dalloway, I would recommend it on audiobook, just because reading it on the page is very confusing and difficult to understand, and that's part of the reason why I had to write in the margins in the first place. But writing in the margins and giving myself clues and context definitely helped me understand like what she was trying to say with the book, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I just realized I totally missed a question. One of the questions was, what was the last book that you bought? And that was Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese or Verghese. This is a book that I bought recently because the library at my school had a sale, but the plot sounded really, really interesting. It sounds kind of like a family drama where there are these two brothers who are twins. Their father was an English doctor and their mother was an Indian nun. And the two of them travel to Ethiopia to, I guess, practice medicine. I think they're both doctors. Obviously, I haven't read the books. I don't know 100%. They travel Ethiopia in the midst of their, like, revolution. So I'm pretty sure it has something to do with, like, their relationship with their parents, their relationship with each other. The backdrop of like Ethiopia is so interesting to me, and I feel like I'll really love it. So the next question is the last book that I have signed, and that is Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese. Proof. It even has a signed by the author sticker. The next question is the last book that I lost. I always confuse myself with what I actually lost and what I gave away. I did recently try to find my book, The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd. I remember when I read it a few years ago, I really loved it, and I'm not quite sure what I did with it. I'm not like in a rush to get it or anything, but I'm really bummed that I lost it. I really enjoyed that book. The next question is, what is the last book that I had to replace? And that is Veronica Decides to Die by Paulo Coelho. That's embarrassing. This is a book that I read for school a few years ago, but I loved it so much. But it was a used copy, and this is also a used copy, but the other one I had was trashed. Like, the spine was falling apart. There was like stains on the inside. It was like kind of gross. And I only got it for $2, so I bought this one cheaper than for what I bought the original one, which had like way more damage on it, so that's the way it goes. The next question is the last book that I had an argument over. And I don't really argue about books, really, just because I think that that's silly. There are times where people like hate on a book that I love, and I get really sad, and I'm like, but you didn't get it, which is like totally subjective, you know? I do remember in middle school, I used to get really heated about like people dunking on Twilight. Is it even an Ariel video if I don't mention Twilight at least once? But I do remember getting into pretty heated arguments. And it was like at the time where it was like at the peak of like when people were really trashing it and saying how awful it was, and like I internalized a lot of that, and I was even like, oh haha, yeah, it's like kind of stupid, and then like cry about it later. But yeah, Team Jacob 100%. I will fight. No, just kidding. I wouldn't fight, but I have my reasons. The last question is, what is the last book that I really wanted but I could not get a hold of it? So a little bit of background story. I have the unabridged journals of Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath is like one of my favorite poets. I don't read a whole lot of poetry. I've been trying to get more into that. I feel like everybody, my English professor made a joke about it the other day, how everybody has a Sylvia Plath phase, and where like everybody tries to like write like her at some point in their lives, and I felt very called out by that. But I seriously absolutely adore Sylvia Plath, and I bought the unabridged journals a few years back, and I haven't read them yet, of course, as one does. The books you want to read the most, you don't get around to until like years later. But I am actually glad that I didn't, because it wasn't until the last like year or two that I realized how abusive and controlling her husband was. This collection of her journals, because it really is a collection, was edited by her husband and only contains less than half of the original text, which is really sad. I've been trying to find the unabridged collection of her journals, and I haven't been able to find it like anywhere. I'm sure that it's on Amazon, but I would rather not buy books from Amazon. I'd rather buy books from used bookstores or like other thrift shops, but I haven't been able to find it, obviously. I'll probably eventually like buy it from there, but I tend to not buy books from Amazon very often because they're not super ethical. So yeah, that is the last 10 book tag. Sorry that the lighting was so awful. I have a lamp on because it's so dark out right now. I hope you guys are having a great rest of your day. I can't believe it's the last month of the year. I am really looking forward to the semester ending because it is actually sucking the life out of me. I have not been reading as many books as I would like to, and I have like 20 books from the library right now that I need to read, but that is literally all I'm going to be doing the last like 3-4 weeks of the year is just reading. So hopefully my end of the year like wrap up will be a good one and not just books that I've talked about a lot already. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!